Hi, what we're going to do now is talk about this bit through here. So I'm going to talk about the horizon line, adding more light on the horizon through here, then adding a bit more definition into this sort of generally very grey area right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut in there with a bit of this pale cream colour. I'm just going to press fairly firmly, use the tip of the pastel and just use it almost like a slicing motion. So drifting on that edge there, tipping, tilting, and just building that cloud bank by getting the light in behind it. So ignoring the actual horizon itself for now, just looking at that cloud bank through there, and then using the shaper tool to push the dark along that edge as well. So push the dark in to the light as well, blow off the excess, and then you've got a nice light line across here which we can then work with. So there's more light to put in here. I can put a bit more through here to break that up slightly. I'm going to use other colours as well to sort of make it less stark perhaps, you know, just breaking up along here. And so a bit more loose movement there, and just drift along with the shaper tool, just very flat, just drift along that surface and keep it fairly loose. So before you begin to think about adding in the actual horizon details, what I'm doing here is getting myself happy with what I'm looking at behind it first, because it's really quite hard to go back and fix those sort of things later if you've got a great big dark line against it, because it's going to just eat into it and stuff. It's not going to work very well. So the first thing I'm going to do is add some paler shades to that horizon line first, because the camera's being fooled by the light in the photograph. So you've got this very dramatic edge on here, yeah, which is not realistic. It's not what it looks like out my window. So I'm going to make sure I put some of the more distant hill colours in first. So I'm drifting along with the same mid purple that I used in some of the clouds further up. So drifting that through there. I'm just using the long flat side of the pastel and just putting some flat shapes crisscrossing through that. I'm going to use my fingers and just cut through, and I even use the side of my hand there, as you can see, just cutting through, just crisscross through that, and just pulling it quite vigorously along the way like that, and just softening all that in there to immediately get more of a gentle edge. Now I'm going to go back in before I get any more detail with that and just include a bit more light along that edge of the horizon there, just so I don't lose that nice edge there. Now you already get some sort of accents happening where things are overlapping slightly, but I quite like that effect. I don't want to necessarily lose that. So I'm going to go back in with that paler colour again and just, again, soften through there. This time though, rather than big bold strokes, I'm doing more gentle ones and just letting that breathe a bit rather than being a bit too heavy-handed. Then I'm going to go with a different shade of purple and just put a few more areas of colour across that just gently. Again, getting that movement through. This time I'm going to use a shaper, and quite vigorously this time. I'm holding it under my finger here, so if you can see that there, if I turn it's on that side there. So holding it quite vigorously and just crisscrossing quite firmly over it, pulling at it. I want the colours underneath to come through a little bit. I'm just getting that and going a different way, so that I put a line across that way, for example, and I'm cutting the other way across it. So I'm just crossing through it, like making an X out of both the marks really. Blow the excess off and make sure it's not going too far. If you've got a particularly pale sky above it, when you blow the excess off, try and avoid blowing up the way. Otherwise you're going to end up with this sort of speckles of dark, you know, pastel over these pale areas. I'm okay because it's not that pale on mine, but if you've got something like lots of white cloud, it can be a big issue. So do try and blow directionally away off to the side, or blow it down the way, for example. Now, I've created some interesting movement there and a bit of work on the valley below. And then I'm going to go back to my horizon and just pick out my light again through here and just put a bit more firm edge on that. So I'm using the tip of the pastel here to just go along that edge there and just show the edge of the cloud a bit more clearly. I'm also going to use a pale grey along here and just drift along just lightly and add a little bit of circular movement there. There's little bits of cloud banks in the distance, in the far distance. I want just to suggest that along there. So, and this I'm going to blow off to the right, correct direction. Okay, so you can see I'm getting a nice edge along here. Now, there is a dark bank coming down here with the edge of the moor, so I'm going to go in there. Now, I'm going to use quite a dark colour. I'm going to use the very flat side of the pastel. I'm going to use the sharp edge just to create that sharp edge along there, and then just drop down into the valley with it. So do you see that? Do you see how it's got that really nice firm shape on there? It comes up and through here. Okay, so blow the excess off. Now I'm going to smudge vigorously, shaper, finger, whatever, but not touch that actual very precise edge that I've got there. But I will touch it now just carefully and just run my shape along that edge there, just controlling that edge and just smoothing it over so you've not got that sort of rugged, odd pastel mark on there, but it looks a bit more smooth, and just cutting through it and just leaving myself a nice solid bank along that edge there. So just being careful with the control there and ensuring I get the effect that I want. Now I'm going to use that colour there and just crisscross through here a little bit as well, just drift along, put some movement through there with it, same as with the light colour, just breaking up through here and just crisscrossing through it, and again vigorous shaper work here just to suggest the valley below. And in the photograph you can't see it, but Buxton is below me in this photograph, so there's a sort of bit of movement through the valley there, and there's use this purple through here as well, so that's got quite a solid bank of colour here. Don't want it to be too solid, so let's break it up a little bit through there. Use this purple shade, so it's got a subtle bit of broken up colour on that. My main feature in this piece is not necessarily the moorland below or Buxton the valley and so on, so I'm keeping it fairly loose. I'm not too interested in doing a lot of detail on that. I just want to get a suggestion of something happening. So I'm going to use a bit of lighter colour here, which is this mid-grey again. But you can see this is quite a strong colour here. It's actually quite a good solid mid-grey purple, but on here it looks very pale indeed. So, you know, be cautious of putting anything too pale on top. You can end up with it looking too dramatic, not working quite right. So just drifting along here, a bit of movement on the surface there, and just letting that knock in a little bit so you get a suggestion of that misty valley below, which is what it was doing that evening. Just gently implying that. Now the horizon further away here, I'm quite happy with how that looks. So I'm going to just run the shape along this edge here and just using the tip of the shaper now, because I can actually use the tip to scrape off. So it's more like a pen now, going along that edge there, and just it's cutting the light away from the edge there. And what it's doing is giving me a nice clean edge there. And it's more vague here what's happening this end. I quite like that vagueness. I think we should keep that to sort of suggest cloud over the hills in the distance. We do get a lot of cloud over Kinder, which is what it would be over here normally. Okay, so then we've got this lovely dark shape here balancing now the darker cloud above and working in terms of the balancing the whole palette. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show you the picture in full so you can get a feeling of how the whole piece looks, and hopefully you'll have an idea of the different stages involved for producing the piece and to work out how to do your own one. That needn't be the same as mine exactly, of course, it can be very different, but I think the step-by-step process has hopefully given you an idea of the technique that I use to create my pieces of artwork. Thank you.